Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. On our last episode, we went through and talked about 5 guys that we consider to be the undercard of Lucha Underground. We talked about Vinny Massaro, Famous B, El Mariachi Loco, Ricky Mandel, and Argenis, and we had a little something for all 5 of those guys to do that's just a step up from guy who loses all the time. So now, speaking of taking steps up, let's talk about the guy that needs to take another step up this season, Mascarita Sagrada.
A great mini competitor is Mascarita Sagrada in my view because Lucha Underground, they don't make this big stink about him like say WWE does in Rey Mysterio in the sense that they don't make his size like this really big deal. I mean, it's always going to factor into the matches, obviously, but they always let you know like this guy is a great competitor. This guy can stand toe to toe with anybody, and they never really make him out to be a Cinderella story, which I'll be honest, I find incredibly refreshing. I think in this day and age, it's less about, oh, we need to sympathize with this person or pity this person and just value them for what they bring to the table. And for Masquerade Sagrada, that's quite a bit. So I'll be intrigued to talk about him today and see what we can hash out together.
Absolutely. So let's just kind of start on his debut. On episode 3 of season 1, we had old Dario Cueto come out to the ring and complain about people complaining that there wasn't enough lucha in Lucha Underground. He even did a great fan impression. There's not enough Lucha Underground kind of thing. And it was great. So he decides to introduce a man that he recruited himself, El Mariachi Loco, who we talked about in our last episode. But the more important aspect here is that El Mariachi Loco's opponent was Mascarita Sagrada. And what I loved about this was that Cueto said, you want Lucha, I'll give you Lucha. And then it was implied that him giving us Lucha to him was El Mariachi Loco. But really, the Lucha that we got in this episode, other than the main event, which ended up being an amazing triple threat, was Mascarita Sagrada, who really does kind of embody Lucha Libre, because Lucha Libre is about, it's not about how big you are or how strong you are or anything like that. It's about putting on a show. And that is exactly what Mascarita Sagrada did in this first match.
Exactly, yeah. Very interesting debut for Mascarita Sagrada. Again, mainly because they played it straight. I mean, they got some gags out in the beginning of the matchup, but then once it really got going, you could see the Mascarita Sagrada was quite competent in the ring, and he actually does get the win here. So nicely done.
Yeah, and then we also got Chavo Guerrero come out and puts the boot to Mascarita.
Yep, just continuing that heel heat from the, I believe, prior week, because that was when he laid out Blue Demon Jr. and everybody with steel chairs, so.
Yep. And then a couple episodes later, we had Son of Havoc versus Mascarita, who ended up winning thanks to Ivalice's distraction.
Exactly, and that's great. Sagrada capitalizing on the distraction, keeps up his little winning streak that he's established here.
Yep, and then he also participated in the 10-way match, specifically the one that Phoenix went on to win, not the 10-man battle royal that Mil Muertes won, which, of course, because he isn't Phoenix, obviously that means he didn't win. And then he also, in episode 11, so 3 episodes after that 10-way match, he teamed up with our next Luchador Spotlight, Pimpinela Escarlata, to take on the Crew. This is before they added Bale. This was just Cortez Castro and Mr. Cisco, although the Crew did win this match.
Yeah, Crew was dominant here, and they did get the win.
So then we got the Crew in Dario Cueto's office, and Cueto doesn't like Mascarita, he doesn't like Pimpinela, and he doesn't like Sexy Star. So he sets up the Crew versus those 3. In Cueto's words, I believe he called them freaks or rejects or something like that. And the Crew's only job is to hurt them so bad that they never come back.
Yeah, Cueto, he has an image he wants to uphold in the temple, saying, look, these guys don't fit my image. It's your job to take care of it, so go do it.
And sadly, in the match itself, Pimpinela gets hurt early, and it quickly becomes 3-on-2, and then the Crew also hurt Mascarita, and it becomes 3-on-1 for Sexy Star. But Sexy Star does end up getting a quick roll-up victory over Bale because of a big Rick distraction.
Right.
So even though technically this team won, these 2, specifically Mascarita and Pimpy, were hurt for most of the season after this.
Yes.
We didn't see them return until episode 31, which was the Disciples of Death in-ring debut, where they teamed up with a debuting Bengala.
Yeah, very interesting. Bengala debuting, and these guys would try and take a crack at the Disciples of Death. Didn't really go their way, but it was great seeing them back in the ring.
Absolutely. So then, obviously, this was the Disciples of Death debut, so it makes sense that they did win. But then Mascarita was in the big multiple person, I don't even know if it was 10, so I'm not even going to say 10, but it was a multiple person battle royal for the final Aztec medallion that Phoenix went on to win. And I believe that was actually the last time that we saw Mascarita. So he didn't have a ton of appearances, but he did make a very big impression.
Yes, and going right into that, into his second season, I'll just get the ball rolling right here, Ashton. I'm going to tell you, I think not only Masquerita, but people like Pimpy and other people that were kind of established as Sexy Star's friends, they should start out the season being concerned about Sexy Star's absence because they don't realize yet that she's been kidnapped. But I would have Masquerita or just somebody put the pieces together, and then they all go after Marty the Moth to try and save her for the moment. I think it would be nice if Sexy's friends that she had their back so consistently in season one, we see kind of a reversal of fortunes here, a reversal of the tables, and they try and repay the favor and pay it forward by getting her back from the clutches of Marty the Moth. So I think one match I would have in Masquerade's second season would be him versus Marty the Moth. Of course, though, I would have Marty get the win there. So that would actually be my earliest program, though, for Masquerita is trying to help his friend Sexy Star for all the times that she has helped him. So that's kind of one
See,
idea that I have.
you know what, John? I absolutely love your idea, but I do want to take it further then. But really, all I was planning on having him do was be kind of like that Jack character, like the Jack and the Beanstalk, or like Jack the Giant Killer, whatever you want to call him. I wanted to have him kind of go up against bigger guys, and even though he wouldn't win often, when he finally does get that big win over one of these giant types, where it'd be like Cage and Mill and Matanza, that kind of thing. I would have it just like kind of build the season up to him beating one of them.
And you know what? It's funny, Ashton, because you and I, we both love each other's ideas. And what's interesting about yours is that was going to be my plan for Masquerade, but the second half of the season, or like the
Right, but you
second
know
part
what
of the
though,
season.
John? That was my plan, but I like yours so much that I would honestly rather sign on to yours and then just add to it.
Okay. So what are you
I
thinking?
I would have Masquerita beat Marty and then have his sister step in to take care of business.
Okay, I like that.
Kind of
I like that.
furthering this idea that Marty the Moth Martinez is kind of a psychopath, but he's really not that good of a fighter. But then his sister shows up and she is balls to the wall killer.
Right. So you've got Marty with the psychotic delusions, and I think the sister kind of legitimizes them through force.
Right.
So I like
It's
that.
kind of like she's almost like his enforcer, like his bodyguard
I
almost.
like that a lot, and I think that furthers the progressive kind of image that Lucha Underground has of women. I really like that idea. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we could
that's
do that.
I think that would be really cool. And I feel like I had sort of a similar plan with with Nia Jax at one point in WWE, where she would kind of be like the protector of a coward heel that was a guy,
Right,
something
yeah.
like that. Kind of like what they used to do with China and Triple H, honestly,
Yeah,
back
definitely.
in the late 90s. But yeah, that's kind of what I would do with Marty and his sister, who we will talk about in, I think, a week or two. But we haven't gotten there yet. But yeah, I think that's a really great idea that you had, just having like Mascarita and obviously
Pimping it,
Pimpy
yeah.
and maybe like one or two other people that Sexy Star associated with in season one kind of go out of their way to try and find her, because like she is kind of like this sort of main character just from an exposition standpoint, and to them she's like the glue that kind of holds them all together. It's like she's like the good friend that everyone is friends with, that even though they aren't all necessarily best friends with each other, they still are united through her.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So
And
they
and
have to
yeah.
like find her, and yeah, you could do like a whole separate, like with what they did with season one with Black Lotus and Dario Cueto. You could do like an entire separate storyline consisting of these characters where they are looking for Sexy Star and getting into like fights with Marty the Moth and his sister and stuff. And obviously you would have matches play out in the temple, but you could do a lot of stuff with just like the cinematic style videos that they do with this group.
Definitely. You could have a whole investigation unfold, I think. And I just really like it
You
again
could
because
have we'll get to this in our next episode, but you could have Pimpy acting like a vice cop where she like goes undercover and acts like she's like hooking out to guys and they're just like, hey baby, let me, and then like she uses that to get information on where Sexy Star is. That would be amazing.
yeah, no, I think it's a potential of great comedy, great seriousness. And
Yeah,
again, what I really like about it is because we've seen
that's a
this in other
comic book, dude.
yeah, I mean, what I really like about it is we've seen it on other like television shows, even movies, where you have this one central hero consistently saving people. Well, when the hero's in peril, again, you see
Everyone
like,
dies.
okay,
Yeah.
it's time for us to step up and save her this time around. And I think that's great because I think that bolsters their image. This gives them something really serious to do because given everything that we talked about with Sexy Star, in her luchador spotlight, she's not just any other kind of performer in the temple. She is higher up on the card. So seeing these guys come together to save her, I think that, by that association, that kind of raises their stock
Yeah,
in the temple.
I think we could probably, I mean, as far as time wise, because of Lucha Underground's season length, I think we could get away with both of our ideas. Where maybe we start the season out with Mascarita trying to kill giants and he fails every time, and then there is this kind of side angle where he and Pimpy and whoever else need to find Sexy Star. They find her. They kind of get through the Martinez family, and then Mascarita goes back to his quest of trying to kill giants, and he finally gets to one that he can beat.
Um, would you want to take it so far as maybe to tie those stories together? Maybe Marty realizes they're coming close, so he enlists a giant, and that's when Masquerada wins when it matters the most. Or do we
Yeah,
keep them
there you
separate?
go. There you go. That's great. I love that.
Yeah, so you know what? I mean, for me, and maybe you'd think this is taking it too far, I would put all the marbles on the table, then be like, okay, Marty makes a game out of it because again, he's psychotic and he's sick. If you can beat this giant, we promise to let Sexy Star go, and then maybe it's like Cage or something, and then Masquerade does get the win. Of course, being heels,
Maybe
they
it's
don't
just
keep
like
up
a
on their
free agent,
promise.
like somebody that we haven't seen yet. Maybe like Lucha Underground just gives somebody like a one match contract where they can come in. They're really big, scary, intimidating. They fight one match against Mascarita, they lose, and then we move on without them.
Yeah, and that could work. And my thing is, as far as like the heels, obviously they wouldn't keep their word, but still, I mean, the babyfaces would get their comeuppance and get
Right.
Sexy Star back another way
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. I
So
dig
yeah,
that. That's fun. I like that there's kind of like this more cartoonish angle with Lucha Underground because you can't have, your Mascarita and your Pimpy and, that those kind of, I would even toss maybe El Mariachi Loco in there as kind of like the minor villain role. But you can't really have these characters and take it super seriously. And I like that because Lucha Underground can get really freaking heavy sometimes and you need a little bit of stuff like this to just kind of keep people at ease.
yeah, and you know what I like? It's not even like, and this is what I really like about our idea. It's not even like we're completely sacrificing the heaviness of Lucha Underground because I think the scenes where you
Well, yeah,
see
it's
Sexy Star in
still
captivity, like,
exactly, yeah, it's
that,
still
that
like
that
a
gets
woman has
dark.
been abducted. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like it gets dark, and like, and what I would do, and I'm sure Lucha Underground would do this, but like with her in captivity and everything, I would leave a lot of stuff to the imagination and leave a lot of it implied, and then you're
Kind
just
of like
thinking
what they
like,
did on a recent episode of Agents of Shield, where they were torturing Agent Simmons, but you didn't
right.
actually see the torture; you just heard her screams, and it was implied.
Exactly. I would do the same thing here because I think the imagination is the most terrifying thing on earth.
Yep.
And you're just thinking like, okay, this
Well, in that example, it worked even better because we already knew what Ward was willing to do to Bobby earlier on in the season or on the previous season, where he shoved the things up her fingernails and stuff.
right.
Like that, just the imagining, like, okay, if he's willing to do that to her, what the hell is going to happen to this Agent Simmons? Like, yeah, if they can kind of work something out where you actually get to see an example of what Marty's willing to do to get what he wants, and then you can do the implication, the kind of the implied torture with Sexy, I think it would make it even more powerful.
And that's certainly true. I think even if they don't go that far, which I would prefer for the record hearing you explain that way, they could still get away with it based on the fact like, okay, we know Marty's off his rocker, but he just said, "Wait until you meet my sister." What the hell is she gonna be
Yeah,
like?
right, yeah.
And I think
And
it
I
leaves a
think
lot.
the big difference there, it's going to be like Marty is going to be like the Joker to his sister's Bane. Like he
Yeah,
he has like this complete psychosis, but he's not the best fighter, so there's not really a huge physical imposition there. But when she shows up, she's not even necessarily gotta be like 7 feet tall. Just she's just a really, really, really good fighter, and physically she's able to do to people what Marty can't.
Exactly. I love what we've come up with here today. Honestly, I think it far exceeded my expectations coming into this thing because it is hard
Well, I
looking at
think
him.
that the
Yeah.
most interesting thing coming out of this is just now I'm a lot more hyped for our Marty spotlight.
Oh, you and me both. Marty the Moth, man.
And for
It's
what
going to
it's
be so
worth,
much fun.
just so everyone knows, we will be also covering his sister character on top of him in the Marty spotlight. We're not going to have a separate spotlight for a character that we don't even know for a fact who's being played.
Right, exactly.
We're kind of
Exactly.
assuming it's going to be Melissa Anderson, and I really hope that's who it is. But all we know right now is that she is on the roster. We don't know what role she's going to play though.
Right.
So,
Well, I'm good, man, on Masquerade. I've got nothing else to say, so unless you
all
got
right,
anything else you want to say.
ladies and gentlemen, we will see you all again then on Tuesday for our spotlight on Pimpinella Escarlata. But before then, stay tuned because later tonight, Ring of Honor Final Battle live reactions will be up. And even more big news tomorrow. That is Sunday, December 20th, 2015. We will be uploading a full breakdown of the Lucha Underground Season 2 trailer.
Gonna be awesome.